Inside the Parisi Palace, high above 2919 East Broadway. This is a live edition of the Jake Feinberg Show, coming to you live on Power Talk. Please go to our website, powertalk.live. Download our free app and stream all of our live local programming, including Solomon on Blast, the Jim Parisi Show, and yours truly, the Jake Feinberg Show. We can't thank you enough for making us part of your day today, and we got a real treat for you. My next guest is a guy, a multi-instrumentalist and really gifted rhythmist and funky player. On top of that, he's also a part of the lineage of the great African-American classical music known as jazz. And it's such an honor. I've been after him for a long time. And, even when I'm lost on my journey, I get a phone call from an unknown phone number, and I call it back, and I say, "Yeah, this is Jake Feinberg," which I never do. And the guy's like, "Yeah, this is Blackbyrd." I'm like, "Wow, there he is, Blackbyrd McKnight. Welcome to the Jake Feinberg Show."
Thank you, Jake. How you doing?
Good to hear you, my man. That's so good to connect with you, man.
Good, finally to do this. We've been trying to do this for a little while, huh?
Absolutely. I wanted to go back to something here, Blackbyrd, is were you in Batakoto with Bill Summers? How did you connect with Bill?
Bill through the Headhunters. My first introduction was to Benny Maupin. I met him in Kansas City. And from there, we, bonded and formed a friendship. I used to go to his house and do a lot of playing, writing, help him write some stuff, stuff like that. And it led to a jam with the Headhunters. And I'm not even going to try to remember the year, but
it's probably around like 73, 74. No, I mean, this is so Benny. Benny and I. Can you just talk about how you met him was he playing with his own group at that time, or what?
Actually, no, he was with the Herbie Hancock Sextet.
Oh, okay, right on.
Yeah, and I met him at a hotel. I can't remember the hotel we were staying at, but I called for a cab to go into the city. The city being Kansas City. And they called me back and asked me if I wouldn't mind sharing the taxi with another gentleman. And that gentleman wound up being Benny Maupin.
Wow.
Who I had been listening to. And, I had been listening to the Herbie Hancock Sextet. They were one of my favorite bands back then. And, yeah, sure, I'll share a cab with Mr. Maupin. And we got in the cab and we started talking. And, it was cool. It was cool. We had a lot of the same likes and music and stuff going on, and on an initial meeting. So we exchanged numbers, and when he got out of the taxi, he said, one day we're going to play together. I just don't remember what I said at the time, but I guess he was right.
Blackbyrd, it's so great to talk to you, man. Benny's the perfect example of a guy, at least now, I mean, it's very hard to connect with him, to get him on the radio. I've tried to talk to him a few times, and I wanted you to just talk about, I remember Charles Lloyd, doing my interview with Lloyd a few years ago, and I think that was your Maiden Voyage album on Gita, but, Lloyd talked about going to USC with Master Billy Higgins and those cats, and there was no talk about Duke Ellington or, the ragtime players and the Charlie Parkers. I mean, that was not built into the curriculum, and there wasn't a lot of jazz academic program to begin with. But I mean, can you talk about your concept of, black classical music? I mean, how were you raised in that sense? Benny's the type of guy too, where it's like, I believe he believes that it's black American music. Can you talk about your concept of that and how it was instilled in you?
Well, instilled in me through my father. As far as I can remember, back to the cradle, my dad was a huge jazz fan and had all of the hip stuff. I mean, everything back in the day. Monk, Ray Charles, Satch, Miles, Train, say Monk?
You got Monk. Right? You got Monk in there. Yeah.
Okay, that's just a little bit of
Dizzy. Those
Duke, Dizzy, everybody. Yeah. So my first hearings of that was when I was in the cradle. So I remember that growing up. Not sure if I'm understanding your question.
What I'm saying is that it seems like we live in a time now where in jazz where it's become elevator music for pacification.
I was gonna say, so like, what you mean? It's getting squashed?
Yeah. And I'm just talking about the burning quality of this music. It came from the root. You go trace it all the way back to the motherland, and I want you to talk about that to the audience because I'm not interested in pacification. I'm not interested in music in an elevator. The music that you were raised on was burning music, and like Art Blakey would say, his job was to wash away the dust of everyday life for those people that were coming in to check him out. And I just kind of wanted you to talk about, that the idea of the roots of this music, because I don't want that to be lost.
And lost it shouldn't be, but it sure is evident that things are being forced to change, if not just changing. The element of the music that you're talking about is being wiped out by a different style of music, as it were, they call it. But I don't know how to word that question because we live every day trying to keep that element alive in whatever way we can project what we do through music. Other than to say that's where that's at for me.
What when you say, I think you said it was getting crunched down, how is it to my ear? I don't. Okay, so here's the thing. You're a multi-instrumentalist, and I want to get into this later. But the idea is this: that you listen to Philly Joe. Here's the funny thing: is that all these rock drummers, guys that have become studio legends, they all wanted to be Philly Joe Jones or Elvin Jones or Mickey Roker or Max Roach or Papa Joe or Kluk, and the point is that there were these very intricate rhythm. The bass drum, Blackbyrd, was not being used as to keep time at all. In some ways, they were dancing on the cymbals, and those cymbals came out of the sanctified church. And that's what I'm trying to get at, is this whole idea of rhythm. That's where jazz starts. And when I've done two interviews with guys, this is not my theory. I talked to Reggie Workman earlier this year, and then I did an interview with Joe Sample, rest in peace, a couple years ago. Both of those cats talked about drummers could be in their 50s today, and you can go see a jam, music, whatever music it is, preferably melodic improvisation like jazz, and those cats don't touch the cymbals. They don't touch it. Okay? And all I'm intoxicated with is dancing on those cymbals. And so I'm not even I'm not even asking you a question. I'm just asking you to riff on that, because that's all I'm getting off on. That's all I care about these days. All I hear now, you even listen to bands like Grand Funk Railroad. I just interviewed Mark Farner. That drummer was not playing. He wasn't using double bass drums. He was using cymbals.
No,
just talk.
I think he had a single kit. Yeah,
that's right. It was to me. That's what I don't hear that anymore in music. I don't hear that space in the music. And
there's no space. There's no space.
There's no space.
There's no space.
So I guess what I'm getting at is to talk about, if I'm even remotely accurate here. I'm not. This is not my theory. It's Reggie Workman. He said they just don't touch the cymbals. And then ultimately, how does that create space by keeping time on the cymbals? And then ultimately, you said you guys are every day. It's your job to keep this alive. So what would be your advice to cats who are looking to, to break up the time and then go back into time the way Tony and Ron did, and just the way the Blackbyrds did?
Well, just to go back and listen and pay homage to those cats, really listen to what they're doing and what they were thinking, or what your analogy of what they were thinking is, because that's where we got everything from. But at a particular point in the game, it just seems like things got watered down. If I didn't make myself clear earlier, it just, like, they chopped everything in half and put time, bass drum, everything everywhere. And then you have the drum era where everybody wanted to overplay. I don't know if I like that shit, actually, overplaying, but
yeah, that's right. I mean, there's it's okay to be talkative, but to me, it's like anyway. Keep going on that.
Yeah, so leave some space. I mean, you could do all of that, but in the course of an evening, how much of that stuff do you want to do? I mean, Philly Joe, Tony Williams, all of those guys could sit up and tell you what they were thinking when they played the rhythms and the notes that they did back in that era. And I don't get a lot of that these days.
Could you talk about playing with Sunship Woody Theus?
Ooh.
Because you want to talk about a cat who was channeling the spirit. Blackbyrd McKnight channels the spirit, and that's why we finally connected. But Sunship would get up from the drums and have an experience one would have in church. He would start praising God. You must have been.
You would have.
You must. I want you to talk.
You would have that experience while you were playing with Sunship.
Exactly. Roberto Miranda told me that.
You walk into Sunship's house, and all of a sudden you get this very spiritual, very cool vibe. On the first couple of meetings with Sunship, it was such a pleasure to meet the guy. He was just soulful, nice, knowledgeable guy with the music at an early age too. I think I can't remember when we first met, but very energetic, but would leave space with he played with you. He definitely played with you, rather than just getting an ensemble of people together and just going for it, full throttle or whatever. He played with you. He let you breathe. He would breathe with you. The multitude of colors that he used when he played his instrument. Sunship was all that and a whole lot more.
Did you, were you playing live dates with him early?
Yeah.
Can you talk about I'm not sure if Larry Gale's Coffee House was still around. There were some African clubs in L.A., but because, truthfully, there's a great story that the skipper, Henry Franklin, one of my dearest friends, told me. He said that Woody Shaw came in with Art Blakey and literally he was gonna cut an album at Contemporary, and he's like, I need this drummer, Sunship. I need him on this record. So Skipper called Ship one night, no answer. There was no answer machines back then, and so they brought another drummer in, and Woody's like, no, and of course Woody Shaw had all the music right in his head, and so he's like, I want Ship. So Henry called him again, still no answer. They brought in a new drummer. It still was not good enough for Woody. So the third night, Skipper called Sunship again, and he answered the phone, and he had been meditating for a long time. And he said, hey, can you make this gig? And Sunship said, sure, yeah, I would love to. And so it turned out to be an LP called Song of Songs. With George Cables was on it, and Ramon Morris, Skipper, Woody Shaw. And it is, to hear him use all of his kit, the colors, the rhythms, the melodies, the rhythmic melody that he was playing.
That was his name. Transcending sunship, rhythm, sound, and color.
There you go. I don't. I mean, you didn't hear my. You don't hear the opening. You didn't hear the opening to my opening song of my show because this is the second hour. But I mean, on a mission given to me by Woody Shaw, Sunship, and Dizzy Gillespie. So the ship is in my soul, and to me, it's like. I guess on the bandstand, could you talk when you in your early career? Could you talk about an experience? Doesn't have to be with Sunship, but an experience where ultimately you left your physical body.
You try to do that every time. Every time you.
Well, but I mean, you can't try. I mean, early on because there's only two letters that separate music and magic. And so I'm just talking about getting on the bandstand early on when you're not totally sure yourself, but all of a sudden you're beginning to get your rudiments down, and then you can forget all that stuff, and then you leave, and then you're seeing yourself on the. I love talking to the cats. If there's a story that stands out, I'd love you to share it.
No story that stands out because, like I said, every time I pick up the instrument, I try to if. The music allows you to do, to go to that space. That's where I try to go. Every solo, you close your eyes, you dish your eyes together, and you think of where you want to go, what you want to say. That you've never done before. That's where I like to go when I'm playing music. There's no thought process, or there's no preparation, or nothing like that. Just when the time comes, you do it. You go there. You listen to what everybody's doing, and to the most that you can deliver, you go where you have to go. You go where the music takes you.
How did you? I remember talking to John Abercrombie, great guitar player, and he started playing his career with Johnny Hammond Smith, and he said, if you don't have good rhythm, you're not going to get a gig. And I just wanted to know how you developed rhythm on the guitar.
Developed rhythm from listening to everybody I could, practicing as much as I possibly can. Rhythm was a part of my thing back then as well. I love lead, but I also love learning, songs and copying styles and licks and what have you. Always, yeah.
So yeah, I'm going to put this. So we got a piece of music here for you. I'm going to put this tune in, and then we'll come back and break it down.
Okay.
get it, you gotta get it. If you got it, get it, you gotta get it. If you got it, get it, you gotta get it. You gotta get it, you got it, get it, you gotta get it. You gotta get it, you got it, get it, you gotta get it. You gotta get it, you got it, get it, you gotta get it. You gotta get it, you got it, get it, you gotta get it.
All right, Blackbyrd, what do you got for us, brother?
Whoa, where'd you get that?
That is a live show fully available on YouTube, 1975 from Winterland. That's the Headhunters, sans Herbie.
Really?
I can email it. Dude, it is ridiculous. And I mean, I want to talk specifically about that ancient, timeless introduction of, Summers playing some kind of African.
Berimbau.
Yep. And then you're playing, it looks like an acoustic guitar. I could be wrong.
That on film? You had that on film or something?
Yeah, I'm going to send it to you. It's unbelievable. Yeah. I mean, this to me is the most cosmic stuff in the world. And, it's in black and white, but it's pro shot from the Winterland. Can you just talk about was there a lot of, how did you guys work it out once you guys became the Headhunters as far as these kind of improvisational, rhythms that you guys were starting? I mean, it's intoxicating.
That was Bill. Bill, deeply enthralled in the church in Africa and all of the African stuff, and that was how he proceeds to start the song off. He bought the berimbau, and I picked that part. I tried to. I did a number of things trying to emulate what his instrument sounded like, but wound up with if I'm not mistaken, it was a Les Paul. If that was. I'm
going to send you the video because it doesn't look like an electric guitar to me. I don't know. I really can't tell. You're right next to him though. And I mean, the band itself is just a house of fire. I mean, do you look back on that experience? Did the audience get that music? And did those two albums you make, or the one, The Survival of the Fittest, did it translate over to what you guys, conceptually what you were trying to do?
I think, honestly, we wanted to go a lot further than what we were, what wound up on the LP. It was kind of a battle between the record company and what we wanted to do. You go in with an idea or notion of what you wanted to do, and the guy from the record company would come in and tell us that maybe you should try this or try that or whatever it were. And that's pretty much what we came on time or anything. Whatever the composition, however the composition went is what you did. With the exception of God Make Me Funky, they had to find a way to cut it into, a format for radio airplay, as it were.
Sure. No, this is fantastic. I mean, ultimately, the record holds up well, but in your live performances, did you guys stretch out a lot more?
Well, there weren't that many live performances, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, I got to tell you, this one from '75 is unbelievable. I'm going to send you some clips.
That was the very beginning. That was the very beginning of. I haven't seen that. I heard about it, but I haven't seen that.
Yeah, I mean, Benny's playing. He's playing percussion, and Mike's playing drums, and Paul's singing and playing lead, electric bass. I wanted to talk to you. I love talking to the musicians about this concept of when you, the African rhythms are all very cyclical, but the idea here is that you get lost in a free form improvisational jam. And I would like you to talk about the concept of when you're in a group context, that any note can be the one. When I go see a lot of live music today, rock or funk, soul, whatever it is, the rhythm sections are often extremely concerned about where one is. Where is the one? Where is the one, right? And, like cats like James Jamerson used to yell at people and say, any note can be the one, right? Any note can be the one. And I just want you to, Blackbyrd McKnight's philosophy on that, any note can be the one.
Any note can be the one. Okay. Where do I go with that? I don't have an answer for that.
In the sense when you're playing with cats like Vince Wilburn and you guys wind up, like you say, transcending the music and ultimately having that experience, when you get lost in it, you all know that it'll all come back around again. The one will come back around.
Yeah, it always does usually come back around, but for me, it's like when you get enthralled in that, you don't lose the place that you're at because somebody's got to count. The fact that most of the times when you do come back on the one, it's an overwhelming experience when everybody does it at the same time, and everybody's listening to one another. That's a great experience to have, I don't know. I've heard some pretty. The stuff that I listen to, Greg Howe and a bunch of guitar players, from that level, Sean Lane, Greg Howe, Tony McAlpine, they don't seem to gravitate to where the one is. And the stuff that does it, I'm not sure if, I might listen to it, but I don't retain the information of what it is or whatever, I like what I like.
Sure.
And if it's like the genres that I just explained, I can get with it, and it doesn't matter where the one is. If you're listening to funk, or I should rephrase that, if I'm listening to funk, of course, you're concerned about where the one is, and everybody's listening to it like that, but even within itself, when you decide to go someplace and it doesn't involve the one, you just count. That's how I do it. I just
no,
make sure that I count so that I know where it is I am, so that I can recover when I do go someplace else. Because if you don't count, then you're lost.
Could you talk about your first experience going to the motherland of Africa? Just maybe not even to play, but because cats will go there and someone will be playing a tambourine in the meter of 17. You got to count 17.
I learned that from listening to Herbie.
Talk about that. Can you?
I learned that from listening to the Sexton album. I forget the name of the song.
Yeah, I know. It's called Crossings or something.
I have that too. That's another album. Sexton is the album after Crossings.
Wow, I would love to know.
I think it is. I think I got it.
I need to know what tune that is, man. That's unbelievable.
I forgot the name of the song. I think it's. You'll find it as the song goes. You'll know when you get there.
Yeah. So is it? I mean, it's just a matter of having that internal clock in your head.
Basically, or developing it the best way that you can. If you need brush up or learn some things or whatever. Yeah. Internal clock is the way to go.
Can you talk about the first time that, or a time going back to Africa to play or to visit, and what was awe-inspiring for you?
Wow. You said Africa?
Yeah.
How'd you know I'd been to Africa?
Well, I'm going on gut, man. I mean, I interviewed Ahmad Jamal and asked him about playing in burlesque houses, and he said, "How'd you know about that?" I've done I've done 600 interviews, so at this point, I just took a chance.
It was different. I forget. I think we went to Tunisia. Tunisia's up at the top of Africa.
Right. That's right.
So I didn't get to go to the Africa that I envisioned. When I got to Africa, it was Muslims. It was basically all Muslims. It was very beautiful, very rich. Very, very nice. It was very nice. The gig, on the other hand, was very rushed. In fact, one of the bands got in an accident and kind of wasted half of the band. So the gig wound up good, as usually, all of the gigs are, is for whatever reason, Africa wasn't the greatest experience on the first go. I didn't get a lot of culture, but I did see, a race of people that I didn't know existed in Africa when I got there.
Is that because, like Jimmy Heath said, in our Western society, Africans are made out to be like Tarzan? And in fact, they're actually not that.
Oh, only because I've never been there, because you don't pay attention to whatever they,
What band did you go over with, by the way?
No, we went over by ourselves. George Clinton and Parliament Funkadelic.
Okay, so you went over, and then another band actually got in a car accident, and people were really injured?
No, there were two vans, and half of George Clinton and the P-Funk All-Stars were in one of the vans. There were two vans, and one of the vans, as we were racing down the road, we saw the van overturn, and guys standing on the side of the road. It was the band's van. It wasn't another band. It was our band.
So the gig was good, but then you ultimately, did you get to go to South Africa?
No.
Can you talk about the culture? What was inspiring for you, and what did you learn from that?
You don't want to know. Wasn't that great of an experience, man. It wasn't that memorable of an experience, actually.
You said that you didn't get a lot of culture in your first trip, but you said the second time you did.
I've only been to Africa once. That was the only time I've been there.
Right.
Like I said, I didn't get to go to the Africa I had visioned, Niger or anywhere else in Africa. We wound up there, and it was very short. It was like one evening. You flew in, you flew out, you did the gig and you flew out.
Talking to Blackbyrd McKnight here on the Jake Feinberg Show. One of the L's on my show is leadership, and I'd like you to talk about what you think are the best qualities of leadership on the bandstand.
Best qualities: being on time, being sharp, knowing what you're talking about, being able to give direction and lead in the course of the evening.
How do you? Can you talk about like as a leader in your own? I mean, we are a society that hangs on. We're very verbal now. In our society now, on the bandstand, it requires a lot of nonverbal communication. And could you talk about a time on the bandstand when, how do you communicate on the bandstand?
Signs, hand signs, head signs, nods, left, right, up, down. Sometimes hand signs. A nod sign, like when you want to break it down. A nod up where you want, everything should go up.
Who was the best leader that early in your career? Before you ever cut a studio album, late '60s, around that time, what band were you in?
Before the '60s?
No, but before Gita in 73, 71, 70, did you have a band that you played in? What was that group all about?
Learning. I played with the Silvers. I played with another band, it's the Young Hearts, another singing group. And guys that would go on to be stellar players. I played with it. Nobody was in like one band for very long. So we all, during that particular point is when everyone started jumping bands to, at least I did, to get as much musical information as I could by throwing yourself into whatever kind of music were out there. In this case, back then, there was rock, there was jazz, and this was before the reggae and all of that. So pretty much it was rock and jazz, and I got into Balinese and Chinese, Japanese, of course, African.
This was like, you'd say like late 60s?
Yeah.
Wow. And so, yeah, because I was curious about how you picked up I know the sitar. I mean, how did you learn? Did you just pick up like in the Japanese setting? Were you playing the koto, or, I mean, were you playing the
I did have a koto for a hot second. I found the koto in the music store, and I copped. I never had a sitar. I still wanted a sitar, but
it credits you with it's funny, on this Survival of the Fittest album, it says vocals, guitar acoustic, guitar electric sitar. Blackbyrd.
Was that on the second album?
Yeah, right? So you play, yeah, right.
The song, I was thinking of the song.
It's okay. I mean, the point is that you said you never played.
I did play electric guitar on that album. Yeah.
But you never really played it before. You just picked it up and played it.
In fact, I rented it. It was a song that Paul Podium wrote, and I figured it would sound nice if we got an electric sitar on there just for a different color. And it wound up working. It wound up working for that part.
I want to read you a quote from Charles Lloyd here. He said that. Let's see. Let me find the quote here. He said to me, "I'm always someone who's trying to go forward, and what's important for me to know is what I can find when I can find some new notes and new experiences from my life to share with the listener. I don't like to talk anymore. I just want to play music. It's your life story. It's about finding that one note that will answer all the notes. I haven't found it yet, so I'm still on that quest. I hear a sound in my mind that I'm always moving towards." So, are you also always searching for new notes? And can you talk about ultimately, how you formulate tunes, how that melody comes into your consciousness?
Sometimes it comes through the mind. Sometimes the melodies just come to you. Sometimes I sit at the computer or the console or whatever you call it, and I just have at it with the technology as it is today, there are many different ways that you can express yourself musically. I've come to like the electronics and all of the stuff, the loops and all those kind of things. So I do it that way. And like melodies, by the time you get to the melodies and you put some kind of structure together, it works itself out. You know, I spend a lot of time doing that too. By the way, that was Herbie that said that?
Charles Lloyd.
Charles Lloyd, he nailed it.
Well, that's what I want to talk to you about is
he absolutely nailed it.
Sir, you're still on that quest searching for that one note?
Oh, hell yeah. No. In my case, notes, chords,
yeah,
whatever I can find. Yeah. Yeah.
It's this idea of telling your life story, though. You know, I mean, that to me is like there's this authentic quality. I mean, if you're really being an authentic artist, and I just feel, you know, in today, it's upsetting to me in today's mainstream music where you can have a huge Twitter following and be a very good-looking person, and you might just be a terrible artist, but yet with technology you can fix all of it. And that
no,
word.
You can't. No, you can't. No, if something is good, you'll know it. If it's something that you like, that's a different story. With the you could be a regular artist and come out with something good. People know what it is that you do when you do it, or if it's even you. You know, so people know what they're listening to. If that was your point, forgive me for interrupting you, but.
I don't agree with you. I mean, there are people out there that are making huge amounts of money, and they are not even good musicians. That means the masses.
Yeah, that's true.
Right.
I agree.
And you know, what I'm trying to get at is that I had, you know, Lamont McLemore on from the Fifth Dimension 2 hours ago. That cat, you know, I mean, they sold a lot of albums, but those cats had very deep natural talent and a lot of soul. And so what I guess I'm looking at it from more of like a global perspective of saying, if people can't detect authenticity, if they can't see truth, if they can't tell truth, then, and they're not willing to dig below the surface like Lloyd or yourself, then what does that say for civilization? That's kind of the larger point. I don't necessarily think that younger, all I'm saying is that I'm 38. Younger cats have had digital beats crammed into their ears for 2 decades. They can't hear space in music. They don't know what authentic music really is. Okay. And so,
yeah,
I'm saying
that's terrible. That's a bad thing.
Yeah. So I guess what I'm getting at is that I don't know necessarily if people know when something is real or not anymore. Maybe from your generation, but younger cats, seems to me that they are less inclined to be able to feel, because that's really the questions are this: when did your ears grow the most, and how did you learn to feel the music?
One of the elements that I learned feel was from watching the emotion of Jimi Hendrix playing the guitar, which to me, he was a very emotional player. Very, very emotional. The way he bent strings, his whole approach to playing music was very emotional. So one of the things that I did was listen and watch him. As you know, other artists as well. You know, experiences that you go through in life, that also helped me to feel. You know, the person that I am is the person that you hear when I play, regardless of what's going on. If I'm mad, happy, whatever, you can tell. If you see me play, you can tell what's going on.
I dig it, man. I mean, can you talk about did you see Jimmy live, or is it just
Yes.
so? And in the live setting, that was the way you were watching him bend those strings. It wasn't, on records or things like that. I mean, you really
It was both of those. Any form or medium of music when you got it, because remember, there was no YouTube and all of that stuff. So pretty much the television, whenever Hendrix came on television, I was there. I watched. When he came, I saw him 4 times. The Forum twice, the Hollywood Bowl, and the Anaheim Convention Center. So the Isle of Wight, where people say is the actual miserable show, or he was pretty bad.
yeah.
I didn't feel that. I was watching the emotion that he was portraying as he was playing, and for some reason I could get it. I could imagine the pain that he must have been in that particular part of his life, which, if I'm not mistaken, was close to the end.
That's right.
Yeah, I felt that. What is it? There's another show. Royal Albert Hall. That was another one. Yeah, I feed off of those things. I feed off of the emotions that people portray when they play the instrument. Carlos Santana, very emotional player. I like that. Like watching guys like that.
Yeah, well, I remember talking to Michael Shreve, and he said, "How do you expect the audience to go there if you're not willing to go there first?" And so, that, and I really dig that a lot. And I mean, is there a story about Herbie was Herbie like that as a leader? I mean, where
Herbie was one of the. I've been fortunate enough to be in a bunch of bands that had great leaders. Charles Lloyd, great leader. Herbie Hancock, great leader. I mean, both of those guys, great leaders, great people. George Clinton, great leader, great leader. Miles Electric Band, Vince, great leader.
Is the commonality with all those cats that they allow you to express yourself?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
What about you? Are you a leader of a band?
I have been. I was musical director, MD, whatever you call it, for Parliament for a while. I've had my own band. I had Electric War Babies, which was a spinoff of P-Funk.
Sure.
I had an album, or I have an album, about funk and time.
I saw that, about funk and time.
Yeah. That was a duo. I was playing with backing tracks and a drummer. I chose to go that way, which I rather enjoyed.
Did you?
Yeah.
Were you ever influenced by the guitar player Phil Upchurch?
Oh yeah.
I'm going to read you a quote.
Oh, yeah.
I'm going to read you a quote. He said, "I like to quote Wynton Marsalis. This is Phil. He said, I'm not giving up my art because of forced trends. Keeping up with the Joneses. Wow. That's not what art is. It's not about seeing yourself on the best-selling charts, Grammys, or that sort of thing. Art is about something that lasts a lifetime. Following the masses is not necessarily the best way to go. I'm always true to my heart and what I am feeling as opposed to trying to be on the charts. I want to set trends, not follow them." Do you feel that way?
Exactly.
Can you talk about how you're trying? How are you doing that in 2016? How are you trying to? Because I think it can be very. That is the biggest uphill challenge for someone like myself, an independent broadcaster who's trying to do something not about nothing pop related, all humanistic, all philosophy, wisdom, and love. How is Blackbyrd McKnight infusing that kind of those principles into your own bands or your own music in 2016?
By doing what he does naturally and pursuing that dream as time allows. I write my own. I do my own. I don't have a producer. I don't go for any kind of vein. I just sit. What comes, comes. Whatever kind of format, whatever kind of sound, whatever it might be. And I cherish it. I cherish it. I love what I write.
I love it.
You know, some things are finished, some things are not finished, but I do what I do, and I, just like the gentleman stated, I don't follow trends. I listen to what's available and, you know, what is that or whatever you want to call it, but I don't engulf it or enthrall myself in it. I listen to it and I hear it and I go back and do what I do, you know.
I dig. I mean, I'd like you to talk to the audience. Another one of the L's on my show is life, and I'd like you to talk about a time in your career or in your life when you were facing some adversity, and ultimately how you overcame that adversity and how it made you stronger.
Surviving it, just a time in my life. The Herbie era was a good example of that. I was living in San Francisco, and the gigs folded, and so I had to sustain myself. I was living in San Francisco at the time. I'm from Los Angeles, but I moved to San Francisco to join with the Headhunters and Herbie. And after it wound up, the band disbanding, I moved back to Los Angeles and had to reestablish myself after being gone from 2 years, I guess, 2-3 years. I would have to say was the hardest part, reestablishing yourself, making phone calls, being in places, letting people see that you are around and available for things in the area again, reconnecting, making new connections, you know, with folks the best way that you can. I did it at gigs and stuff like that.
How did you, what was the next kind of stable gig that you had once you had a sort of manager?
Parliament. Actually,
Yeah.
I have to put this in its truest perspective. It was the Brides of Dr. Funkenstein, which was a spin-off of Parliament Funkadelic. That happened in 1968 in the fall. And about a year or so later, the Brides band broke up and I moved to Parliament. And that would have been the next after Herbie. Out between there, it was a lot of listening, a lot of soul searching, a lot of practicing, which I still do. In fact, I was practicing when you called. It had slipped my mind that you were called. It's a good thing I had the phone right in front of my face.
Yeah, no, I mean, you live it. You live this. You live this lifestyle, this musician's lifestyle, and I think it's really. And I'm going to ask you one more question before I let you go. I'm not a musician, and my whole show is predicated on love, and so I'd like Blackbyrd McKnight to talk about his concept of love.
My concept of love is waking up every morning thanking your lucky stars that you are still here or anywhere, thanking your higher powers that be, whatever their names, whoever they are, trying to be and get along with as many people as you possibly can on this earth, which is, my God, I don't have to explain that, but being the best person that you could be, obviously being the best guitar player, if not a better guitar player than I was when I went to sleep last night. I wake up striving to be a better everything that I could be. Meditation, I've do my meditations and stuff. Yeah.
Well, Blackbyrd, I hope this wasn't too painful for you. I appreciate you taking the time away from your practicing to break it down. It really is a high honor to connect with you, man.
Thank you. I enjoy it. Thank you so much, Jake.
I'll get you a copy of this later, and I'll also send along that video because you should. It's inspiring. I realize the Headhunters was a fleeting time, but kind of the beginning of the end for the magic of just incredible rhythmic music at that point. So it's just keep it going, man, and we'll talk soon.
I shall. Thank you so much, Jake.
Cheers, Blackbyrd.
Happy holidays, and hopefully we'll talk soon.
Absolutely will. Take care, brother.
All right, bro.
Peace. Man. Yep. It's a heavy day on the Jake Feinberg Show. Lamont McLemore from the Fifth Dimension. Lee Underwood, who is a decorated writer for Downbeat, published an autobiography on Paul Horn and was also the lead electric guitar player for Tim Buckley. And then just another spiritual, deep, individual player, Blackbyrd McKnight. Roper, what do you have to say? I mean,
that was so chock full of just everything. I was bombs left and right with Lee. I mean, just with this guy Blackbyrd, it was just so rich about his journey and his time and how he progressed personally, and just so much there. It was just killer, man. It was just killer.
Sometimes I don't necessarily. Sometimes I think it's really hard for these guys to express themselves in words, right?
Yeah.
I mean, Blackbyrd
Sure.
especially. I mean, Lee not so much, but I think that my hope is that someone like Blackbyrd can hang up the phone and say, "Wow, he kept me on the phone for an hour."
Yeah. Lee was a writer. I guess he's a communication guy.
More verbose, yeah.
But all these guys are musicians. That's their first form of communication is music. So that's a little them just communicating with their voices. Maybe that's a little foreign to them. Maybe that's not their first forum that they want to express themselves through. But again, still unbelievable. Just unbelievable stuff. Like these stories just. They take you back. I mean, I've never been back to that time, but I assume it'd take me back to just that era. That is just so cool.
Hopefully there's cats out there, too, that'll read or hear these stories, and it'll inspire them to do similar stuff. And I have just want to wish everybody a very Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays, Happy Hanukkah. I will have a pre-recorded show in the hopper next week. We'll be back on New Year's Eve. Thank you to Mike Roper. Happy Holidays. From everybody here at the Jake Feinberg Show and Power Talk. We'll see you in a little bit.
I've been playing blues for quite a while. I've been around the world a few times, but I don't understand. I just like to play the blues. It's not all the money that I want. I just like to play the blues. And I like for everybody to get together and all of us play the blues. Let's have a good time. Because blues is where it's at, baby. I'm telling you, I love it. I can't help but play it. So when you wake up in the morning,
You're on a gig.
and ain't got no money, or no gig, whatever you call it, you ain't got nothing but the blues no way, baby. Or either your old lady gonna do yagging you and arguing with you, telling you want you to get up and do something. And go to the steel mill, and you know you're blues singing, that's usually the blues too. So sometimes you really don't know what to do. And when you get worried, all you can do is reach and grab your harmonica and try to play the blues a little bit. There's the blues.
Here we go.